Yeah, and I've seen that. Like I saw like a fishing game, or I don't know who it was. It was like a lady in a uniform on top of Franconia Ridge, and I talked to her one time. So I don't know what her role was. And then I've seen another one on the top of Tuckerman on Memorial Day weekend, and they were just directing people around. So
yeah,
very good,
awesome news. Who knows how many rescues they've prevented? I mean, honestly, good people.
Yeah. And can I tell you, every time I see the trail stewards at a trailhead, if I'm hiking it, like I always like, this is bad. Don't do this, but I've got experience, so I can get away with it. I'll wait until like a crowd goes near, and the trail stewards are like talking to other people, and then I'll try to like walk up and like kind of walk around and just sneak my way past them. Yeah, so I'm like, I don't want to talk to anybody. Leave me alone.
And they're like, hey, you.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've talked to them before, but yeah, I'm just antisocial. I'm like, I don't know.
Broadcasting from the Woodpeckers studio in the great state of New Hampshire, welcome to the Sounds Like a Search and Rescue podcast, where we discuss all things related to hiking and search and rescue in the White Mountains of New Hampshire. Here are your hosts, Mike and Stump.
Episode 7, Stomp. We're making our way into the 10s here.
All right. Nothing's stopping us now.
Yeah, exactly. So today was a big day for the podcast. I don't know. Well, I'm still working on like the announcements and all this stuff. Like this is way more work than I had planned. Like I just wanted to like sit there and talk, and then all this shit just gets magically like put on the internet, but it's not really like that. But we are.
Yeah, it is. It's a lot of work.
It is. So we just released the first 2 episodes on Apple and Spotify, and released the website and stuff. So
yeah,
I get the shit end of the stick here. So just for the audience's reference, like we've got kind of the work split up, and Stomp does all of the audio and editing and all that fun stuff. And I'm stupid enough. I picked like the social media and the technical website stuff. So it's been an interesting journey.
You can edit all the ums and basicallys and
yeah, I know that's my fault. So I got rid of the ums, but I replaced them all with basicallys. But there's another right there. My kids, so I am impressed though with the podcast stuff, because my kids always give me a hard time about like not being like technically adept, and I really don't think that they would be able to figure out how to get a podcast up and running.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I think my kids, I don't know if they haven't dabbled in this yet, but they definitely have done other things on the web that are pretty cool. But they sort of grew up with me tinkering around with audio and stuff like that anyway, so I've maybe exposed them to a little bit more of this stuff. But,
yeah,
it's a quick thing to learn. Not too bad.
Yeah, honestly, like I'm not that technically savvy, but you can figure it out pretty well. I mean, we're getting it done, and my kids, as much as they like to call me a boomer, like I'm in Generation X, like they don't understand. Like we grew up in a time where there was no technology, so everything that they have now from a technical perspective, like we've learned as we've gotten older. So I feel like we have a much better perspective than they do.
Oh, sure. Yeah, do you remember the Ataris and all that stuff growing up?
Oh yeah, I used to play
Atari 800 and all that. Oh yeah. Man, it's amazing to see where it's gone.
Yeah, exactly. So
we're getting there, ironing out the kinks.
Yeah. So just for everyone's reference, we loaded the podcast up, so you can find us on Apple and Spotify, and we've got the website, which is called slasherpodcast.com. So we'll have a new version of the outro on this show. So I think the outro previously had just talked about like finding us on Instagram and Facebook, and now we actually have a real website that you can go to. So we're making progress.
Absolutely.
So this week we continue our Intro to New Hampshire Hiking series with a segment on the best beginner hikes in the White Mountains. Looking to get a friend or family member into hiking and want to make sure that they get lots of views and enjoyment out of their first hike without working too hard? We have it covered with a list of hikes that are going to get your lazy kids or your skeptical significant other hooked on hiking. Later in the show, we'll cover a recent search and rescue event on Mount Monadnock. And for a sneak preview, it involves an iPhone light, a cliff, some Instagram videos, and a helicopter ride. Mm-hmm. So we'll finish the show up with some unsolved crime discussion. And we're also going to try to solve the question of whether or not hiking is actually becoming more popular. I'm Mike.
And I'm Stomp. Let's get started. So, Mike, what are you drinking tonight?
So anything? The traditional drink discussion, I am drinking, it's called Rainbow Gravy. And it is by Black Hog Brewing Company. And it's 7.5% alcohol. So I've taken like 2 sips. It's a solid IPA. So
one and done.
I think so. I think that's about my max.
That's awesome. I'm having a, a Moat Mountain Czech Pilsner.
Nice. Is that
turkey dinner in a bottle?
Nice. I feel like didn't you have that before? You had something by Moat Mountain.
Yeah, I believe so. I can't quite remember. But yeah, it's really good. It's one of my favorites. I like a heavier beer in general, but it's really decent.
Yeah. I love going to Moat Mountain. My in-laws live in that area, so we're always over there. So I always stop into the Moat after a hike when I can. Get the slider plate. Highly recommend it.
And just to go back to the previous episode, remember all that talk about the nudes?
Yes, yeah. We had a lot of naked discussion between my beer and the bald face naked people.
Well, that's what I wanted to mention. After the fact, we noticed.
You want to correct an error or something?
No. I totally missed that you were drinking a beer that was referring to nudes.
Yeah. I mean, we were talking about it in like after we edited it, because I had bought the beer before we had the discussion, and we hadn't planned to talk about like naked people on the bald face loop. I just threw that in there, and then lo and behold, Stomp had naked people on the bald face loop. So not planned.
Right. It was so weird.
Yeah, it was. So there is a hike naked day though. I think that's a thing for sure.
It is. That's Appalachian Trail.
Is it?
Yeah. Once a year they have a day, and I forget what it is, but my lovely bride has participated, actually, so that's pretty cool. Not
sure she'll be thrilled for you sharing that with the podcast universe. The 30 people that are going to listen to the show, know. As we're talking about this, there was a story. I think it was probably like 3 or 4 years ago, but I'm pretty sure that I read online that Fish and Game used trail cameras, and it might have been on the Oliverian Brook Trail, but there was like a naked guy spotted on the trail cameras or something. Maybe I'm misremembering that. I'm going to have to do some research, but if anyone's listening to this and they can validate that story, I'm pretty sure that there was like an investigation going on around a naked person that was walking around trailheads in the Whites, but maybe I'm wrong. I can't remember.
That's a riot. So I guess it's illegal.
I don't know. But I remember people talking about the fact that they said Fish and Game uses trail cameras to keep an eye on things around the trailhead. So, and again, I have no idea if that's even true or not. So.
Oh yeah. So just around the trailheads in general.
I don't know. Maybe they use them to keep an eye out for people that are breaking into cars or something. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Good point. There's been a lot of that actually, especially this summer.
Yeah. Over the years, you always get a few car break-ins. So people say to just leave anything that's not valuable, just don't put anything valuable in your vehicle, and just leave the car unlocked when you go hiking on the trailheads, which, I could see it both ways. Like I definitely leave some things in my car that I wouldn't want. I just don't feel, I'm too lazy to take them out, but I also understand the idea is that it's better if somebody's in there just looking to steal some change or some basic stuff out of your car, just leave it unlocked versus getting a window smashed.
I guess. Yeah, I've talked to people about that. It's a really odd trade-off, right? Leave your car open and yeah, who knows? It's weird. I've been lucky so far, knock on wood.
The conventional wisdom is just leave your car unlocked, and if somebody's going to break in, they won't smash a window, so... Anyway, but so I think the next thing we typically talk about is hikes, Stomp. So you've got your bad hip, so I'm assuming you can't go for a hike, right?
Well, I've been trying. I've been pushing it. Just, I think it was yesterday, with this beautiful weather that's rolling in, I went down around the bend to Welch Dickey. I was just determined to get out there and do something. So I actually went up the ledges side as if I were going to Mount Dickey. And I set a goal for myself for 15 minutes up and then 15 back because I just didn't want to get stuck up there.
Were you crutching it the whole time? Were you in a crutch?
No, you know what I did? Well, I've been using a single crutch, but I used 2 hiking poles, and I'm really forcing myself to try to walk with a normal pattern as if I were hiking with 2 poles. It's amazing what a surgery like this does, man. I'm gassed out after like 5 minutes, but I'm back on the trail, hiking up, hiking down like I was. So I'm really encouraged about this. It was really funny. In the parking lot, I noticed the car of one of the Pemi members. Her name's Jen Adams. She's really cool. She's great. So I left her a little note that she missed me gimping around on the ledge side.
Oh, nice. Nice. Well, take it slow. Take it slow. We don't want you to be in a starring role on one of our news stories here.
Yeah, slow and steady. How about you?
Unfortunately, I didn't get out for a hike last weekend, and I was planning on going out Saturday, but I actually got a COVID vaccine appointment, so that kind of threw me for a loop. But I got the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, which is nice, so I'm going to go get stuck on Saturday, and then Sunday looks kind of rainy, so I think what I'm going to do is just hit the Ossipes, maybe do like a Mount Roberts and Mount Shaw loop or something like that. So I'll report back on the next. Yeah, so I figured like that area. I mean, if it rains, it's not going to be great, but I'm thinking that area might be pretty good for hiking. But then again, those carriage roads get ridiculously muddy, and I'll probably be covered in ticks by the end of the day. So we'll see how it goes.
I was wondering about that. I think it's going to be an early tick season this year for sure. Who knows?
Yeah,
we'll see.
Yeah. I have a system. I walk on all the rocks, so I stay out of the grass, and no ticks come on me. It's worked for 15 years for me.
Hey, what's your prediction for this coming weekend? Saturday's supposed to be 70. This could be the big boom for search and rescue this weekend.
Oh yeah, I don't know. I mean, typically, I monitor the statistics on the search and rescue events, and typically you'll see a very slow first quarter of the year, January, February, and March, but that hasn't been the case this year. It's been busy. Yeah. I think like every episode we've had at least 2 that we've covered. And then you see the big spike usually happens in like May. So it's still a little early right now because we're in like the second week of April when we're recording this, but you'll see like a huge spike in May, and then July and August, or June, July, and August continue upward, and then you'll see a little bit of a dip in September, in October, and then usually everything dies in November, December. But this year, like November and December was busy too. So I think if the trend continues, then yeah, it'll be a busy year for sure.
Yeah. Just anecdotally, what we notice is that whenever it's, 70 down south in Mass or Rhode Island, that's when people start thinking like, ooh, summer's here, let's go hike in the ridge. And it's still full on winter up there. So anyway, we'll see.
Yeah, I'm sure. Like, from my perspective, the more incidents that happen, the more content we have. As long as people stay relatively, we don't want anyone dying for the content on the show, but it is interesting to hear people getting in trouble. I know you guys don't like to go out, but for me, I'm like, I can just sit here and talk about it.
Right.
So I'll report back on the hike, and who knows, maybe I'll switch it up. Maybe I'll go on Franconia Ridge to see if it's a zoo like you think it will be. But
SLASR's hiking topic of the week.
We got to get into our first segment here. So the intro to New Hampshire hiking series. So we've covered a bunch of topics here. We're talking about beginner hikes today. So the idea here is that you got a friend, or you're just listening to this podcast and you've never hiked and you want to get out there and get experience, and either that or you have a friend that hasn't hiked or a family member and you want to get them to the point where they get really into hiking. So the criteria here is they've got to be short hikes, so nothing more than a couple miles. You have to have good views or interesting sights, And then we're not including any waterfalls in this subject because next week we're going to do a waterfall segment. So that's the criteria, Stomp. So I just think we're both going to pick 3 hikes here. And for the audience's reference, one of the good things about like me and Stomp, my experience is all on the North Conway side, so I can give you sort of that particular area, and then Stomp, you're over by like Thornton and Lincoln, right?
Right, and Lakes region as well.
Oh yeah, that's right. There's some whole world in the Lakes region.
Oh
so
yeah.
Do you want to go first? You want to give
Sure.
your 3 best?
Yeah, let's do that. I mean, it's sort of hard whittling these down to 3, but and I sort of cringe mentioning this first one, but I'm going to say it. Mount Major.
Oh, nice.
You have to say it. It's one of those places that gets overrun with people on the wrong days. But if you can pick a day that's really, midweek or something like that, the view is stunning of the Lakes region and of the mountains to the north. So it's actually a really short hike. You can pick some really gentle routes up to the summit, and on the right day, it's perfect.
It is. I mean, you just expect it's going to be a zoo up there. I mean, my perspective, I've only done Mount Major. I did it like on a field trip with my kids, but it was beautiful. I mean, the view's amazing. And if I were going to do it again, I would just probably go there at like 5 a.m.
Yeah, that's a good way to do it, actually. Yeah, I've done it 2 or 3 times, and one was for sunset. There were maybe a half dozen people up there, and that was a weekend. But yeah, definitely consider that one. For my second pick, I'm going to go with Mount Cardigan, actually. It's located in Orange, New Hampshire. It can be challenging, but with the right route, it's a stunning summit. It's a bald mountain. Again, there are days where it may be a little busy, but it's a great hike.
Yeah, and it's got a cool fire tower up top, and I don't know. I mean, we went from the Cardigan Lodge and then went up to like Fire Screw in that area. Like, I wouldn't call that a beginner hike. I think coming up the other side is more of a beginner hike.
Yeah, I'm talking the western side for sure.
Okay,
absolutely. Yeah, the western side's much easier. The eastern side is much more difficult.
Yeah, it's a great hike.
Yeah, we'll qualify that. Can I expand my list to 4?
Yeah, you're fine if you want.
2 really quick ones. You don't even have to do Welch Dickey. If you want a really nice first hike, if you park at the Welch Dickey parking lot and just hike in a mile up the Welch Trail, you'll come to this amazing overlook. It overlooks the Sandwich Dome, Sandwich Range, the Tri-Pyramids. It's really a beautiful view for a very short, fairly easy hike. Consider that. That's right in my backyard, and I can't tell you how many times I've done it, and it never fails to blow me away. It's just so pretty.
You want all those people invading your neighborhood, huh?
They already have.
Yeah, it's too late. Secret's out.
Yes, and then here's my last one. This is 3. This is my official 3.
Okay.
Mount Pemigewasset, which is right up in Flume Gorge. It's on Route 3, the old Route 3. It's a 1.5 mile hike to an overlook that looks sort of southeast towards Lincoln, towards, Tecumseh, and a few of the ranges to the south. So that's a really nice, gentle hike as well. There are 2 approaches. There's the Mount Pemigewasset Trail, and then the other trail, which I can't recall the name of, but it starts from the Flume Gorge parking lot. So those are my picks for the beginners.
What's the deal with... So Mount Pemi is going to be where I'm finishing my 52 with the view. So I think I got 2 or 3 more 52 with the views. And then what I'm doing is I'm stringing together a single hike that is going to finish up the 52 with the view, the terrifying 25, and the 4,000 footer. So I'm going to go from Mount Pemigewasset to the Flume Slide to Mount Cannon in a single hike, and that'll finish up all 3 lists this summer. But with Pemi, does it go under the highway? Is that because I was looking at the trail map the other day, and it looks like you have to go like under the highway or something.
It does, yeah. The trail goes right under 93.
Is it like a tunnel or something? Because I'm thinking I don't like those tunnels. They freak me out. I think of like the Pennywise the Clown or something.
Yeah, they're very short tunnels, though.
Are they? Okay.
They're maybe like 30 yards or something. But yeah, it's a strange way that they had to run those trails, but is what it is. You have the interstate going right above there. I think that's the case from both trails as well.
Yeah, because I'm going to have to go up. I think when I do it, I'm going to have to go up from the Mount Pemigewasset trail and then down the other trail to get to the Flume Slide Trail, and then up the Flume Slide Trail, down, and then over to Liberty, down Liberty Springs, and then connecting to whatever that trail is that takes you up to Lonesome Lake and Cannon. It's going to be a long-ass day. It's like 25 miles or something.
Oh, hell yeah. Yeah, that's great. I'm glad you're going to go up the Pemi Trail, though, because that's a really nice approach to Pemigewasset. It's really neat because you sort of come in from under the cliffs, so you get to look up and see the cliffs from below, and then when you get up to the top, it's just awesome. That's a long day, man.
Yeah, it's going to be a long day, but it'll be fun. I'll get the family to meet me up at Cannon or whatever, so you'll be joining me, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'll take the tram.
Yeah, you can take the tram up. So, but no, those are all good beginner hikes, and I don't think about that side of New Hampshire that much because my family is in the Freiburg area, so I'm always thinking in terms of like for beginner hikes, what's in the North Conway and the Pinkham Notch area. So when my kids were little, like I have one in college and I got two high schoolers now, so they're too cool to hike with me. Well, my college one does hike with me, but the other two are too cool to hike with me right now. But I used to take them, and then my niece and nephew. So I had 5 kids by myself because my wife and my sister-in-law and my mother-in-law, they would be shopping at like Settlers Green in North Conway, and there's only so much shopping I can do. So I would take them hiking, and so the 3 hikes that I'm going to recommend are in the North Conway area, and they're great beginner hikes, great kid hikes, a lot of bang for your buck. So my first one is the Black Cap Trail to Black Cap, which is a small peak that's right behind Mount Cranmore. It's probably about a mile and a half, gets you up to the ledges in the Green Hills Preserve, which is overlooking North Conway. So
gotcha.
Trailhead is at Hurricane Mountain Road, so it's a little bit of a sketchy drive going up Hurricane Mountain, and that does close in the wintertime, but you wouldn't want to do this in the winter anyway. But definitely, if you're looking for a good hike and you're in the North Conway area, Black Cap is a perfect beginner hike for you.
Now, right next door is Kearsarge, right?
Kearsarge North is on the other side. Yeah, so when you go up to Hurricane Mountain, Kearsarge North, the trailhead is before the gate. You go past the gate and you go up the road on Hurricane Mountain, and then the trailhead for Black Cap is at the top of Hurricane Mountain Road. And it's about a 1.5 mile hike and awesome views. I've taken my kids there a ton of times, and they love it every time. So it's kind of like right in that zone of like it's not long enough for them to have a meltdown, but it's long enough to tire them out, which is perfect. So the next beginner hike that I'm going to recommend is in Pinkham Notch. So you park at the beginning of Tuckerman Ravine Trail, so you're just in that Pinkham Notch, Mount Washington area. But instead of going on Tuckerman, what you're going to do is park in the lot, you walk across the street, and you'll take the Square Ledge Trail up. It's maybe 3/4 mile to a mile, and there's a cliff that overlooks the Pinkham Notch parking area. And there's a lot of times there's like rock climbers there. I think a lot of the climbing schools will take classes there because it's probably like a 200-foot cliff that people will rock climb on, and there's a slide that goes off to the side of it that the kids can climb up, and then you get up on top of this cliff, and then you have a view of Huntington and Tuckerman and Gulf of Slides right from that cliff. So the only thing you got to worry about is like if the kids fall off the cliff, like they're going to die, so you just have to keep an eye on them if they're runners, but generally just stay back a little bit and you're in good shape.
I will check it out. I'm familiar with Glen Boulder, which is a short and sweet one, but it's pretty difficult.
That's not a beginner hike, so
yeah,
I'm throwing up the red card on that one. But yeah, Square Ledge in. But the thing is, Square Ledge in Pinkham Notch. Do not do the Square Ledge that's off of Oliverian Brook and in the Sandwich Range, because that's a long hike. And then the last one that I would recommend for a beginner hike is Cathedral Ledge, which is in the North Conway area, and it is you can actually drive up there if you want, if you're really lazy, which I've done many times.
Oh, Cathedral, yeah.
But you can hike up. I forget the name of the trail. So there's a couple of trails you can park at the bottom. It's mostly known as like a climbing. It's a huge rock climbing area, but there's a trail that bypasses the climbing route, and you can go up to the top and then overlook the cliff. And then it's almost like directly opposite of Black Cap. So Black Cap is on the northern side of North Conway and looking down into the valley. Cathedral Ledge is on the southern side looking into the valley. It's kind of in front of the Moat Mountain Range, so it's maybe about a mile and a half hike to get up top and then get back down. So, and you can even, like, if you have, like, my wife used to just drop us off, and then they would drive up, and then me and one of my daughters would hike up and meet them. So, highly recommend it.
And there are a million other options.
There are a million.
Seriously, there's a million. Absolutely. Oh, if you go to the north part of Franconia Notch, Artist Bluff, that entire loop is a mile. You can go to Bald Mountain for sunset, and then there's the actual Artist Bluff itself, which is a quarter mile, if that, to a stunning cliff that overlooks Franconia Ridge and Cannon, and it has this vertigo-inducing effect because the mountains are just in your face, like boom. So that's another nice one too.
Yeah, and I'll on the show notes I will put the full list of all the hikes that we've covered here, and then I'll take a look at my Strava routes and link any of the GPS coordinates of the hikes that we've talked about on the show. So I have a bunch of hikes that I've done that I can look through Strava to see if I can just get the routes for you. But there's any other big ones we've missed. So I think we probably want to talk about Mount Willard too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Willard, Sugaloaf. There's so many, but those two are definitely worth adding quickly. Yeah,
huge. Not a lot of hiking and amazing views. Willard looks down into Crawford Notch, and then Middle Sugaloaf gives you views of, I don't know what that area is called, but like the Twins and things like that. And it's only about a 2-3 mile hike.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Willard's really interesting too, because what is it? Maybe 3/4 of a mile vertical, and then it flattens out for a mile. It's a very strange hike.
Yeah, it is usually when people say, like, oh, I want to go hiking, what's a good first hike? Like 90% of the time on social media, people will say Mount Willard. So, but the goal here is, like, if you're thinking about a beginner hike, don't let people convince you to do something that's over your head or over your ability. And even when you're taking somebody with you, even if they're in good shape and you feel like, okay, they can handle it, like, just be careful about bringing people up to like Mount Washington or even, the 4,000 footers, because the worst thing that you can do, especially with kids, is just burn them out and get them to the point where they go past their limit.
Yeah, for sure. That happened to me with my 6-year-old. I took her up Glen Boulder. This is crazy. It took three of my daughters up to Lake of the Clouds Hut for a weekend. It was like 90 degrees out. I ended up carrying my 6-year-old on my back the whole way up. It was just
it's not fun.
Totally burnt out.
Yeah.
No, it burnt her out. It gave her a really bad taste for hiking. I mean, she's much older now, in college, and she does actually enjoy hiking again. But for the longest time, she's like, nope, not doing it. Nope.
Yeah, it's the same with me. There's actually another good hike that I would recommend for beginners is Cave Mountain, which is off the Mount Langdon Trail, which we took when we hiked Mount Parker. But if you go off to the left,
that's when I made you break trail the whole way up, right?
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, exactly. So the Mount Langdon Trail, it's right in. So if you go into Bartlett, instead of taking a left onto Bear Notch Road, you take a right and you go over I don't know what that river is, the Swift River or something. The Mount Langdon Trailhead is right there, and then you just go on that trailhead, go to the left, and there's it's maybe about a 1.5 mile hike, and it gets you to this. It's called Cave Mountain, but it's not really like you're not on top of a mountain. It's just this series of caves that the kids love. They love to explore it. But I think I took my youngest one at the time. She was probably like 5 or 6, and I had 5 kids and just me. And there's like a steep section to get up to the caves, and she had a bit of a meltdown. And ever since then, she's like, I'm not hiking with you. So you just got to be careful. So don't bring people beyond their limits. And hiking with kids is tricky. We'll probably do a separate show just talking about hiking with kids.
Yeah, definitely worth it because it's a wonderful activity for children.
It is. Yeah, it's great. And like I said, we will put the list of hikes that we recommend on the show notes page so that you can research it. And hopefully this will get you started and on the path to doing some 4,000 footers. But that's a wrap on this segment, Stomp, unless I missed anything.
Yeah, we're good. Moving on.
All right, segment 2 is recent search and rescues.
Saturday, April 3rd, there was a skier who had a steep fall down the Gulf of Slides, which is the southeast side of Mount Washington. This was a 61-year-old gentleman from Delaware. He fell about 1,000 feet. I mean, this is a really tricky time of the year, Mike, because the snow up there, certain places you can still deal with avalanches, but now the snow's compressing and there's a lot of ice in certain sections, and it can be very unforgiving. If you lose your footing on the way up, you're in big trouble. He was coming down a popular route called the Main Gully. After the slide, U.S. Forest Service Rangers took immediate action. They tried to get a DART helicopter to assist in the rescue, but the DART helicopter was unable to actually land near the patient.
Did they have to land, or could they just can't they just put them in a what is that litter called that they can hoist them up on?
Well, the DART helicopter doesn't have the capability to hoist.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, so they have to land and get the litter inside the helicopter, and then they could have taken off, but they just couldn't find a suitable spot to land in order to do that.
Yeah, there's no openings in the Gulf of Slides. It's not like Tuckerman where you've got like a big open area.
A lot of vegetation.
Yeah, it's all true.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Lots of trees. Yeah. Absolutely. It's very different than Tuckerman's. Yeah. So the conservation officers that were there and the U.S. Forest Service Rangers decided to try to get a Army National Guard helicopter in, because that helicopter does have the ability to lower a medic and a hoist and clip it on to a litter or a sked and then elevate them. But unfortunately, they ran out of time. They just thought that it was going to be dark soon and it wasn't a viable option. The two helicopter options didn't work out, and that happens a lot in search and rescue. So their last choice was to take this injured person out by litter, which is a whole lot of fun for everybody involved.
Yeah, I can imagine. So that's then they're faced with basically, and I don't know how you get out of the Gulf of Slides. There must be like skin tracks, or can you ski all the way out of there? I have no idea.
I don't know either, but I'm assuming that you could just grab a certain altitude contour and walk yourself over towards Tuckerman's. That's a good question for some folks like Jimmy and a few others that have done it. So here's an interesting thing. I guess this guy's boot popped the second he made his first turn. Yeah. So his boot popped out of his ski, and that prompted the fall. Yeah, and I know.
So I have backcountry skis, and I've done it a little bit, but like I like resort skiing, but I do have the backcountry set up, and my bindings are like set up so that they unclip at the ankle, but I have regular, it's a full binding, but I think most backcountry skis have like the pins in the front and then you clip in the back, which is kind of a delicate setup. So I don't know. I would assume that he hopefully tested those before he tried them out. But
I don't know.
I mean, 1,000-foot fall is just ridiculous. I can't even imagine what that must feel like.
When I used to ski, for me, it was a matter of making sure that would never happen. Like, I remember cranking down those knobs so that there was really very little chance that those would pop off. I mean, that's the last thing you want to happen.
Yeah, again, I don't know. I have backcountry bindings, but I have the kind that are like a full binding that unclip. Maybe he was using like the ones that are just like sort of the pins on the toe. But I don't know. I don't know enough about backcountry skiing to know how to make sure your equipment doesn't fail.
Yeah, we're just speculating. We need a skier to come on the show here.
Yeah. We'll have to get Jeff Rogers or somebody on here to explain the ways of backcountry skiing.
Oh, that'd be great. So that's basically it. I mean, this happened at 4 p.m. They used the litter to get him out by 9 o'clock. It doesn't really talk about any rescue teams involved, but it does mention volunteers. So I'm not sure if those are just, Good Samaritans that offered to help out, or if they physically called, Androscoggin Valley Search and Rescue to assist. I'm not really sure.
Yeah, I did see the next day the Mount Washington Avalanche Facebook page, I forget what that group is, was asking if anybody was in the area, if they would be willing to take the sked back up to Tuckerman. So they must have taken the sked from the Tuckerman area and then brought it over, or whatever it is. I don't know what it is, but they were looking for help on bringing it back up. Yeah. So hopefully the guy's doing okay. 1,000 feet is like a ridiculous fall, though.
Yeah, it doesn't really say anything about injuries either, so hopefully he's okay. Now this second one, right? We are moving to the southern part of the state. This is Mount Monadnock.
Correct.
8:25 p.m. Sunday, April 4th. A 40-year-old woman from Massachusetts reported that she was in the Monadnock State Park on the White Arrow Trail, and she did not have a light source. And she lost light and was unable to move. Her cell phone battery died, but before that happened, thankfully, 911 was able to provide GPS coordinates for her location. This person was about half a mile up the mountain from the end of Old Toll Road in Jaffrey. Officers from Fish and Game arrived at about 9:20 p.m.
So yeah, this is an interesting one, Stomp. So I think in the news reports here, it says that she started her hike at 6 p.m. I don't want to speculate on anybody's personal situation, but I think from what I can tell on this one, there might have been some personal distress going on here and some decisions that weren't really as rational as they should be. Starting a hike at 6 o'clock with no light. I think that, my understanding from some of this is that she was having maybe some kind of a personal struggle here, but it's tough to speculate. But there was some videos on Instagram that seemed to indicate that there was a little bit of oddness here. So she was like live videoing the situation as it was happening, and you were able to go on an Instagram page to kind of see that there wasn't a lot of urgency to get down, even though the person knew that they were running out of light. It's very, very odd. I don't know. Do you guys deal with that a lot? Like people that have sort of distressing situations and kind of head out into the woods to clear their head and they get in trouble?
Yes and no. A lot of the times, a lot of those details aren't really important for our job, so we don't necessarily get provided with that information.
Yeah, you don't care. I'm a busybody, so I'll use my opinion, but
no, it's totally cool. But in general, when you do find a person, you can tell what state of mind they're in pretty quickly. Every victim is different, and if the situation was, a legitimate injury, or if they just made a mistake and got lost, or if something else is afoot. You can read people pretty well.
Yeah. And I know, I'm speculating based on, what was on social media and what I saw on my own, but I'm not qualified really to even make an assessment here. But I can tell you that, starting a hike at 6 o'clock, not having light, being in an area where you're not familiar, and having to call 911. It was regardless of what the situation, it was a rough night for this person. And the news story, it says that she was she had a really bad fall, and she's lucky that she's alive. So
yeah, well, I was just going to talk about that. They found her around 10 p.m. Apparently, they learned that after her battery died, she began to panic and just began hiking down in the dark. So she did have a 20-foot fall and landed on a rocky ledge below this cliff area. Apparently, she suffered serious injuries to the right side of her body.
Yeah, and Monadnock has a lot of rescues on it, and a lot of times you don't even hear about it because there's like a ranger station right at the bottom. So they, a lot of times they'll just, they'll rescue people, and it never makes the news. You don't really have an idea of how frequent it is, but. This time of night, there's just not a lot of people around, so they probably had to get a rescue organized pretty quickly.
In this case, they used a bunch of different resources. Cultural Resources Mountain Patrol Rangers, members of the Jaffrey Fire Department, Peterborough Fire Department, and the Upper Valley Wilderness Response Team, which is a volunteer group. They actually had to med flight her to UMass Memorial. That was about 2 a.m.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. And that, was it the White Dot or White Cross Trail?
It's actually White Arrow Trail.
Right. Yeah, I haven't been on that one then, but the main trail where people come up and down is like White Cross or White Dot, and there's a lot of accidents there because it's just, Monadnock's just a sheer cliff or open ledges in a lot of areas, so people tend to just lose their footing and get injured, so it's unfortunate.
Barring any psychological things that may be part of the story or maybe not, I think the big takeaways would be that you need a light source. And if you're a newbie hiker trying some of these new trails that we've suggested tonight, go with somebody. Don't try to do this stuff alone.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm always a big fan. I tell everyone, like, start early. Wake up early, make it an event. Even if you're not a morning person, try to get on the trail early. There's less crowds. Usually the views are more spectacular. You might catch an undercast, and you don't risk a situation where you might be out out too late where you don't have a light. But always bring a light with you. But I prefer to just hike early, so I don't have to deal with any of that.
And always visit hikesafe.com if you have any questions.
Now, would there ever be a scenario you think where you would, your volunteer organization would get called to help down in that area of like Cardigan and Monadnock, or sure. It would have to be like a search, right? Yeah,
more than likely it would be a search scenario. Yeah, I mean they can muster up enough people to carry somebody down these peaks in these areas. Cardigan, Monadnock, you're talking what, 2,000 to 3,000 footers. So generally, that's manageable with the amount of people that they can muster. But if it's a search or a multi-day search, then they need all hands on deck.
All right. So those are 2 search and rescues in New Hampshire this week.
Mm-hmm. Yep. The peace before the storm, or the calm.
Yeah. May is coming. It's going to get busy. I can tell.
Yeah, as it always does.
Yeah. All right. Well, anything else on search and rescue you want to talk about, or we want to move on to the next topic?
Let's see. Is there anything in the background here? Oh, I do have news that the trail stewards are going to be back in action this year.
Oh,
so that's
nice.
Good news. Yeah, I was talking to a ranger from the U.S. Forest Service this morning, and the trail stewards are going to be in action at the trailheads, a few key locations, and they're actually talking about doing alpine stewards, which will be people up on places like Franconia Ridge interacting with people. So that's fantastic.
Yeah, and I've seen that. Like I saw like a fishing game, or I don't know who it was. It was like a lady in a uniform on top of Franconia Ridge, and I talked to her one time. So I don't know what her role was. And then I've seen another one on the top of Tuckerman on Memorial Day weekend, mm-hmm. and they were just directing people around. So
yeah,
very good,
awesome news. Who knows how many rescues they've prevented? I mean, honestly, good people.
Yeah. And can I tell you, every time I see the trail stewards at a trailhead, if I'm hiking it, like I always like, this is bad. Don't do this, but I've got experience, so I can get away with it. I'll wait until like a crowd goes near, and the trail stewards are like talking to other people, and then I'll try to like walk up and like kind of walk around and just sneak my way past them. So I'm like, I don't want to talk to anybody. Leave me alone.
And they're like, hey, you.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've talked to them before, but yeah, I'm just antisocial. I'm like, I don't want to. Do they like? What do they do? Like, I don't even know. I haven't even interacted with them. I always avoid them. But like, what are they like? You need to make sure that you have a light in your backpack, or they don't have any authority to tell anybody anything, but they can just give advice, right?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I've never hung around to see how they operate, but it's one of those weird things. I mean, how do you approach somebody? How do you start that casual conversation without being so obvious, like, hey, idiot, come over here. You don't look prepared, I don't know.
Yeah. Well,
it's got to be a very sensitive, delicate approach.
Yeah. Well, I actually have a couple of friends that are trail stewards, so we can probably get somebody on the podcast in the future.
You should. Yeah.
I've never asked them though. I got to ask them like what it's like to work that. So
Yeah, it's so, it can be somewhat arbitrary and subjective to a point. So how do they pick people if that's what they even do? I mean, maybe people just walk over to the tables. I guess this year they're going to have barriers though because of COVID, so you can't walk over to the table and violate the distancing and all that stuff. So interesting times.
Okay. Yeah. Well, we'll save that for another episode. We'll get a Trailhead Steward on here. They probably have some good stories. So,
yeah.
Next subject, though, is the one I've been waiting for since we started this damn show.
Awesome.
Or this damn podcast is Unsolved Mysteries.
This is one of your favorite topics, huh?
I do. I'm an unsolved mystery junkie, so I like crime. Yeah. And actually, New Hampshire has some really, really interesting cases of unresolved murders as well as missing people and some other noteworthy crimes. So we are planning to do some like dedicated shows to some of these topics, but what I thought tonight we would do, Stomp, is go through a quick summary of all the interesting cases that are happening here.
Let's dive into some White Mountains history, shall we?
All right, Stomp. So there's a lot of unresolved mysteries and murders and missing people here. So I'm just going to go down these one at a time.
Awesome.
And then you're not as excited about this stuff as I am, but hopefully I can pique your interest a little bit.
Yeah, let's see what happens.
All right. So the first one, we're going to go back to 1977. Were you alive in 1977?
Yeah, I'm
you were like 20 years old, right?
I'm a 1969 Woodstock baby.
Oh, Jesus. You're like Super Gen X. Super Gen X. So 1977, this is an unsolved murder of a lady by the name of Shari Roth, age 22. So she left her home alone on Sunday, August 21st, 1977 in North Conway to go hiking on Sawyer Brook Trail in Livermore.
Okay.
She did not return home and was reported missing that evening by friends. Her body was discovered on August 24th, 1977, so basically like 3 days later.
Right.
An autopsy indicated that she had been strangled to death. Ugh. And this is listed on the cold case file on the New Hampshire State Cold Case website. And it's an interesting case because it's obviously a crime of violence. What I tried to do is try to figure out, like in this case, like do they have DNA? That's always the question with these cases is back in 1977, DNA was not a thing, but
right.
Did they collect enough evidence where they might be able to recover some DNA from the crime scene?
After the fact today?
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of cases that are being solved from the 70s, believe it or not, because the crime scene material is saved and they can extract DNA. And then through genetic genealogy, where they can basically now, they can run DNA through a database of DNA and figure out like who your fourth cousin. So if I put my DNA in the database and I make it accessible and somebody runs this like criminal DNA, if I happen to be like a fourth cousin of a murderer, they can, by doing the DNA match and then doing a genetic genealogy search, they can actually find suspects. So they've closed like dozens of murder cases over the last 2 years with this technology. So a case like this where it's a long shot, but if they have DNA, they might be able to figure out who the perpetrator is. But this is down by where they found her, was down by where you went in to hike the Captain by Sawyer Pond.
Wait a minute. Are you talking about the literal spur, Fire Road 56?
Sawyer Brook Trail.
Oh, okay.
So I think isn't that right off the Kank, I believe, right?
Yes, it is. Yeah, there's two ways to get to it, either from 302 and then the other side, the Kank. Yeah, that's a remote stretch, man. It really is.
It is. It's like scary thinking, like 22-year-old girl. I think she was a photographer, and she's just going out for a Sunday hike off the Kangamangas Highway. And unfortunately, she met up with the wrong person and was strangled. It is interesting. There's a couple of people online that have sort of speculated that a potential suspect was this guy who was known as the dating game killer. I think his name's Rodney Rodney Ocala or something like that. I got to take a look at it. But apparently he had some connections to New Hampshire. There's some dispute around whether or not he was in the area at the time of her strangulation, but it's interesting to think that it could potentially be this dating game killer. So who knows?
So I just scrolled through this Department of Justice site here that you sent over to me. I can't believe how many people are listed on this.
Yeah.
These are all cold cases.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
It's a lot, yeah. So
have you gone through a lot of these yourself, just out of curiosity?
Yeah. I've got all of this put together, and this is sort of like my Saturday night hobby where I'll go down these rabbit holes to try to figure out how many missing people are there in New Hampshire, and are any of these cases kind of interesting and cool? So,
You're like Batman.
Yeah. Well, not really, but I'm like Mike Man. So anyway, but Shari Roth, again, 22 years old, really a horrible case. So hopefully, the cold case unit is working on this and has some DNA to work with. Otherwise, I think it's a long shot that they'll ever solve it.
Yeah. Just makes me want to go out to the Captain solo again.
Yeah. See what you can find out there. The next case is Louse Chaput, who, this is a pretty well-known case. This happened in 2001. And Louse she's a Canadian national, so she's from Quebec. I think a psychologist is my recollection. And, was an avid hiker, would frequently go hiking on her own. And in 2001, she came down to Pinkham Notch. She was staying, what's the name of the lodges at Pinkham Notch where people stay? Is it Joe Dodge?
Joe Dodge.
Yeah. So I think she had a room or a bunk bed there, and she got there and decided, she checked in and then decided she was going to go for a quick hike, walked over to, I think she crossed the street is my recollection. There's like that pond there that you can walk towards and then connect with Glen Ellis Falls parking lot. So somehow she met, somebody, she connected with somebody along that trail between Pinkham Notch and the, Glen Boulder Trail near Glen Ellis Falls parking lot. And I believe that the autopsy ruled that her death was a homicide as a result of multiple stab wounds. And there's actually a podcast that was done that broke this case down. I don't know how many episodes it was, and I wanted to listen to it, but it's in French language. So it was some Quebec journalist that did a podcast that broke down this case. But again, it's another one of these, it's a stabbing case. I don't know if the police have DNA, but 2001 is a much, it's a relatively young case compared to Shari Roth's situation. So hopefully they were able to get some DNA, and they might be able to get some leads on this in this case using genetic genealogy, but I have no idea.
Yeah. There was another one in that area. Wasn't there a missing person on Glen Boulder Trail, or was this...
There was I believe that was a suicide. It was another French Canadian that ended his life around Glen Boulder Trail a few years ago. If I remember correctly, I'm not sure.
Yeah, interesting.
But Louse Chaput, I've read online a couple of things about this. Like, there's some speculation. There was an active serial killer in the area, and the Connecticut River Valley serial killer. I think the main suspect has since died, and as far as I know, they don't have anything to tie him to this case, but it seems like, a random crime of opportunity that happened. And, I think it was in the daytime that this happened as well. So it's a really sad case. It happened in, late in the year, November 22nd, was when her body was found in 2001, right by the vicinity of the Glen Ellis Falls parking lot. So not that far from civilization.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Interesting. What else do you have? Anything else?
Yeah, I got a couple of other ones that are interesting. So this case is closed, but I want to bring it up because I think it's an interesting case. So hypothermia, this was ruled a death for hypothermia in 2003. It was a young kid. I don't know how old he was, 10, 12 years old, Patric McCarthy. And it's not an active case, but in my view, this is a suspicious death. This was a kid that was on vacation in Loon Mountain area, Clearbrook condominiums.
I am familiar with this one.
Yeah. And I got a friend that lives in the Clearbrook condo, so every time I go over there, I think of this kid. But this was a situation where he was playing, Patrick was playing with his stepbrother, at the Clearbrook condos in Lincoln, and there was some sort of an argument. He disappeared, and then there was a significant search that went on over the course of 3-4 days. And eventually Patric's body was discovered on Wheelback Mountain, and the cause of death was determined to be hypothermia. And the reason why I include this case is because the state of New Hampshire has closed this case as a hypothermia death. Why I bring it up is because the father of Patric's father was married to a second wife. The first wife's family has been adamant that they feel like there's suspicion that there should be family members looked at as potentially being involved in this death.
Yeah.
And the reason why it's always sort of stuck with me is because they found this kid way up high on Wheelback Mountain. And I've never been on Wheelback, but you've hiked over there, and it just seems to me very odd that a kid is going to run away and get lost and then hike up a mountain versus going down. So I don't know what to think.
So the condos were built. They were there.
They were built, yeah,
Okay.
2003.
So that's interesting because that is an abandoned trail. So there's no way that this little kid just randomly hiked up there. I can tell you firsthand that it's one of the most confusing areas. Unless you've done it a few times, there's no real trail until you get to the higher portions towards the summit. And it's one hell of a hike. I mean, this is not easy terrain. So how the hell would a kid like that get up there? That's amazing.
I don't know. I mean, and the thing, what the family, I think the father or the mother's, the biological family feels that the stepmother's brother, who was like the step uncle, was there doing some searches and was acting weird. So like their theory has been that like maybe the uncle was involved in some sort of weird situation with it, and there's a whole bunch of speculation, and I don't know. I don't want to get sued for like saying something wrong here, but like there's enough here. You can go on the internet and really go down a rabbit hole to really, there's a website that the family has that basically says like they feel like the state of New Hampshire should reopen this case and re-examine it.
Interesting.
And take a look at some of the step families. So
yeah.
The other interesting thing about this case is that I do not believe that Pemi Search and Rescue was active during
What year was this
case. And this is 2003. So what would be interesting is I've read before that right after this was when the volunteer organization started getting really well organized, because this was a big, long search that went on for a couple days. So I'd be curious. I don't know what the background is around that, but I wonder if like this might have been what started the idea of like, let's organize the PEMI so that we can address these cases, in the future. So those are like three that are sort of like, unsolved murder / a suspicious death with Patric McCarthy. And then there's three more that I'll go through quickly, and we'll probably do like a dedicated show to at least one or two of these, but these are missing people here. So there's three cases in New Hampshire that sort of stand out to me. There's a bunch more, but these are the ones that are sort of the most well-known. So first one is Maura Murray. So I was wondering if you were going to mention this one. Yeah. I mean, we can't even begin to do justice to a discussion about Maura Murray, but just very quickly for people that aren't familiar, 2004, Maura was a college student. So she was a track distance runner. So she was a student at UMass Amherst. She had previously been a student at West Point, and had some issues at West Point, transferred to UMass, was in the nursing program, and for unspecified reasons, she called out of some class commitments that she had. I think she was driving up maybe on a Monday morning or something like that, but she decided to drive up to New Hampshire. My suspicion, based on where she was found, is that she likely went up 91 via Vermont and then cut over to Route 112 in Haverhill, New Hampshire, and was involved in a single car accident on 112. Mm-hmm. First responder, a first witness came upon her, was a bus driver, local resident that lived right down the street. He asked, you need any help? She said, no, I'm all set. And then, this guy, Butch Atwood was the name of the bus driver. He drove back to his house, called the police. Police showed up 15 minutes after the crash. Maura's nowhere to be found, and she hasn't been seen since. And the father's been, looking for years. I think he's done a ton of local searches, and there's been no sign of her whatsoever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, heartbreaking story.
Yeah. It's probably, I would say, besides Megan McCain, so that's that little baby that went missing in the UK and Portugal, I would say besides that case, Maura Murray is probably one of the most famous missing person cases in the world. So right here in New Hampshire.
Mm-hmm. I happen to work in North Haverhill, and just a side note here, a lot of my coworkers they're just fascinated by the story, and the second you mention it, you better sit down and be ready to listen to a mouthful, because these people are all over it. They know all the players,
really?
all the conspiracy theories. Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. This community was rocked by that story, and they still are, and they're absolutely fascinated by it. So I'm always the first to get the latest gossip, and it's pretty intense stuff.
And it's an interesting thing. Like, again, we cannot do this justice. Like, we would need a 5-hour podcast to really dive into this. So there's a whole, Missing Maura Murray is the name of the podcast that you can listen to. It's got 200 episodes that cover the case. It's crazy. Mm-hmm. But personally, I think she ran, and I think that she's in the woods somewhere, and she just hasn't been her body hasn't been discovered. And we'll talk about it on future episodes. I'll connect why I think that is the case. But there's a very large volume of people who think that, there was a local person involved in her disappearance. And there's my understanding is there's a lot of chatter and a lot of rumors around, who it could be. You probably, if you're local to that area, let us know who's the suspect, Stomp.
Yeah, who knows? But there's a small contingent of folks that actually think that she's alive and took off.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I've heard that too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm not about to throw names out there. I don't want the good people of North Haverhill coming after me.
Yeah, exactly. But it is like the locals up there. Like, I feel like from what I've seen, there's a contingent that just is leave us the hell alone. It's not our problem anymore. It's been years. And then there's a bunch that are obsessed with it and feel like they want to solve it. So it's an interesting topic, but we'll revisit Maura in future episodes. But I just wanted to throw it out there that was an unsolved mystery in case people aren't familiar with it. And then there's 2 more, and we're running out of time here, so I want to get moving a little bit. But these 2 cases are missing persons that are tied to Mount Washington. All right, I don't know if they're on Mount Washington, but they're tied to Mount Washington. The first one is a Maine resident, and this happened in the year 2007. Guy's name is Kevin Race, and it's an odd case. He disappeared under mysterious circumstances. This is a guy that was scheduled to go to court. 2 days after he vanished, he was facing charges accusing him of embezzling nearly $250,000 from a company that he was a co-owner with. Mm-hmm. He was last seen alive on September 9th, 2007, left a note at his home saying that he went to New Hampshire looking for his final resting place. Family members say that they believe that he committed suicide on Mount Washington, but the body has never been found, and authorities are wondering if he staged his death to evade the criminal charges. So we don't know.
Did they find his car around Mount Washington or something like that?
I don't remember whether or not they found his vehicle. I'd have to look into that, but there's a lot of people that sort of feel like this guy just disappeared, and he's facing a big fine and disappeared. But it would be pretty impressive if he was able to. It's been 14 years and they haven't located him, which is pretty impressive.
Yeah. Wow. Who
Who knows? I mean, it wouldn't shock me either way if the guy was hiding and didn't want to pay the money. It wouldn't shock me if he found a place in Mount Washington, committed suicide, and hasn't been found yet. So Kevin Race, 2007. The next case is a younger gentleman by the name of Stephon Porith, and this happened in 2019. This is a weird case. So this is a 21, 22-year-old kid. He's missing as of now. The news reports indicate that he went missing sometime in March. He was last seen on Mount Washington near the Auto Road. His car was found in Pinkham Notch. So he was seen 2-3 days before he was reported missing, and eventually his car was found like a few days later.
What year was this?
This is 2019.
Okay, I remember this one.
Yeah. So, and I remember specifically, like this kid was supposedly seen near the auto road, and there was a post on one of the 4,000 footer Facebook pages from an employee of the auto road that was like, hey, just a reminder, you can't be on the auto road over winter. She had told this person, like, you need to hike down. I don't know if he was near Nelson Crag or if he was near Old Jackson Road or wherever. But that post had been deleted. When this kid went missing, the news reports had indicated that there was a sighting of him on the auto road. I've heard some chatter on the internet since then that this kid may have never been on the auto road. He may have never even been on Mount Washington. So I don't know what to think, really, about what's going on with this. But he was missing for a while. His cell phone did ping in Westford, Mass, like 2 days after he was supposedly spotted on Mount Washington.
Wow.
And he was from Lowell. But the weird thing is his car was found in Pinkham Notch. So he's either on the mountain or he took his car up there to stage something to make it look like he was on the mountain, and he's disappeared. So I don't really know. But it's very interesting, these cases. Like I can go either direction on them. Like these two gentlemen could be, it could be that they died on the mountain and they're just never going to be found. I mean, I can realistically see that happening in those areas because it's impossible to cover every inch of those regions. But it also could be possible they're just living their lives in some Caribbean island. Yeah,
well, that's what I find really difficult to believe, that anybody could pull that off. Unless you're like some wealthy millionaire that, with connections and this and that. Like, how the hell could you disappear yourself? That would be one hell of a task in this digital age.
Yeah, it would be hard. Like, exactly. Like, I think in the 1960s and 70s, it was easier to do. But like you said, like in this digital age, like you need credit cards, you need passports, social security numbers. It just seems like a really hard thing to do.
Amazing. Well, that was really informative.
Yeah, but there's a lot going on. I mean, there's a couple of other cases here that I could get into, but we're running out of time. So, but eventually we'll revisit a lot of these cases, particularly Maura Murray. We will talk about that one from a search and rescue perspective in the future. But I just wanted to do a quick segment on that to get things going.
Yeah, that was fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah, so anything else, Stomp, you want to cover before we close out?
I think we are good. What's on the agenda?
Next episode is waterfalls. I was going to do a discussion about like hiking popularity, but I think we'll put that one in the next episode because we're running out of time here.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed the show, you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you want to learn more about the topics covered on today's show, please check out the show notes and safety information on SLASRpodcast.com. That's SLASR podcast.com. You can also follow the show on Facebook and Instagram. We hope you'll join us next week for another great show. Until next time, on behalf of Mike and Stomp, get out there and crush some peaks.
Now covered in scratches, blisters, and bug bites, Chris Staff wanted to complete his most challenging day hike ever.
Fish and Game officers say the hiker from Florida activated an emergency beacon yesterday morning. He was hiking along the Appalachian Trail when the weather started to get worse. Officials say the snow was piled up to 3 feet in some spots, and there was a wind chill of -1 degree.
And there's 3 words to describe this race. Do we all know what they are? Only one hill!
Lieutenant James Neeland, New Hampshire Fish and Game. Lieutenant, thanks for being with us today.
Thanks for having me.
What are some of the most common mistakes you see people make when they're heading out on the trails to hike here in New Hampshire?
It seems to me the most common is being unprepared, and I think if they just simply visited hikesafe.com and got a list of the 10 essential items and had those in their packs, they probably would have no need to ever call us at all.